It didn't change scenes. It didn't change scenes. We had technical difficulties right then at the start. Typical. It was trying to set into preview mode whilst also going out live and all other kinds of nonsense. So welcome back to the kind of stumbled in next episode of our body language breakdown series that we're looking at. In today's episode, we are looking at the further goings on of the case that's happening at the minute, with a look at the deposition footage of Christi Dembrowski, who is Mr. Depp's sister. Just to qualify this right from the get-go, we probably won't do the full 1 hour and a half, because with my talking as well, it will turn into quite the lengthy episode. So in order to try and break that down properly, so you guys can take away the best bits, the details, the nuggets, and such, in terms of the tells that are being given to us and the information that we might read from a non-verbal perspective. If it is that you haven't listened to the previous podcast on the breakdown from a logical perspective, that's more to do with the rationale of understanding the non-verbal communication that you're going to be looking at, because I know there's a great many of you that watch my videos that are particular fans of not only this guy, but they have a very high interest in the case in general, and rightly so to a certain degree. But in terms of the information that we're looking at, your fandom or your proclivities for either person aren't really relevant to this understanding of somebody's non-verbals, and they will seek to only interfere on a bias-based level. Good evening, Dave. How's it going, sir? Nice to see you. Nice to see you. To see you. Nice. Lovely little bit of Bruce Forsyth from the English heyday of Saturday night television. So, in standard form, if this is your first time to the channel, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Ben Cardle, and I am the author of the best-selling book, The Monographs, which details the real-world method for the skill set of Sherlock Holmes, and how to develop these and how to train them and utilize them in everyday life for all walks of life. And I now spend my days teaching people from all over the world how to do this for the protection of themselves and those around them. So if that sounds like anything that you'd be interested in, then by all means give a click on ye old subscription button. Or if you're here just for the non-verbal breakdown, then that's fair enough. We'll get into that as well. Anyway, either way, my intention is for you to take away something that you can use from a people reading perspective, and nothing more. So as I say, we're not going to do the full. I think it's an hour and 26 minutes from the Law and Crime Network. Yeah, an hour and 26 minutes. We're not going to do the full thing. Because as I say, it would probably turn into like a 4-hour clip of something. But this is going streamed out live. After the stream is done, I'm going to declassify it so I can then prepare it accordingly and beautify it, or I may just leave it up and add those things in as I go. I haven't quite decided yet. My aim is to tackle this footage that people keep requesting, and that's always been the thing with the React series. I will only look at the stuff that you guys want me to, really. There's only been a small handful at this stage that I've wanted to look at just for me and nothing more. So as I say, let's get into this. I'll make this full screen so we can get into it that way. Beautiful. Okay, so what have we got? Courtroom. People been in there for a good long period of time, judging from expressions, judging from discomfort, judging from heat, So we're already thinking about this in relation to nonverbal communication and the propensity for showing levels of discomfort in relation to the environment. That shouldn't be misinterpreted in terms of things like anxiety and the like, though if she is anything like Mr. Depp, that I can't see her featuring too highly on the extroversion scale when you look at the big 5 personality traits. But there we are. As I say, let's get into this, see what happens. Though I imagine with it being an hour and a half, there will be a lot of the.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to
there she is.
testify truthfully in this case under penalty of law?
You have to verbally answer, ma'am. Okay, thank you.
We already know that she's going to be featuring in terms of her understated behavior, much like Depp himself, right? So you're already showing signs of spending a great deal of time around one another. There was no different lives that were led during the foundations of childhood, that is. Though it was, I understand that he has a couple of siblings, so there'll be the understated notion towards the opposite of extroversion, not really introversion, but just low key and very dialed down in terms of the displays. There won't be a lot of outwardly animated movements within the face, not a lot of gestural explosion or loud gestural volume in terms of that. Yeah, I like it. So we've already got an understanding of how close they are as brother and sister from a behavioral level. Potential nerves in the smile there. We see it from the, if I back round, you can see the little version of it when she curts her seat round. It's not quite pulled up towards where the proper smile would be, and it's a smile through the nose, a smile through the nose that immediately vanishes. So there is a degree of anxiety there. Wasn't a perfectly felt state, so it's indicative of anxiety, of discomfort, but pleasantries, right? So if you're looking at the big 5 personality traits, she'll feature past the halfway stage in terms of things like openness and agreeableness, which lends itself to a degree of emotional stability.
Dembrowski, would you please state your full name for the record?
Elisa Christine Dembrowski.
Ms. Dembrowski, what relationship, if any, do you have with Johnny Depp?
He's my younger brother.
How much older are you than Johnny?
2.5 years.
Ms. Dembrowski, I'd like to ask you a few questions about your and Johnny's childhood. Where did you all grow up?
So what we've got as well from the chair relative to her ability to maintain a degree of comfort is there's the continual shifting. It is a chair that gives in terms of a slight bounce to it, and I share the the notion of discomfort. I can't really get a degree of calm or peace with these, given that I'm quite heavy. So whatever moves I make, I continually bounce in these things. It may be that she is of the similar opinion towards them, in that there is no chance for her to become physically comfortable and lend itself towards an emotional comfort is probably the wrong word. A comfort with the notion of the situation, that is. But we can still see things like their shared, them being Dembrowski and Depp, their shared flair for style and the rings and the jewelries that they add on to themselves. She has a very close relationship with him.
Grow up.
We were born in Kentucky and we moved to Florida when we were kids.
Who lived in your household with you and Johnny?
Our mom, our dad, we have an older brother and older sister, and Johnny and I.
when you examine the displacement of energy levels in a body, right, you can see when the chairs have the option to move. When it goes from not moving to moving within that area, it's done to either displace discomfort from a physical state or discomfort from something else that's being triggered in here that leads to a physical manifestation of that. That's the likely inclination there with Johnny is that there's some connection of anxiety or some connection towards what might be considered inherently negative feelings towards the parents.
Who was the youngest child in your family?
I didn't qualify that properly because on the time he accented with the small spin in that area.
Johnny.
Would you please tell the jurors what your relationship with Johnny was like when you were growing up?
Johnny and I were very close. With having the older brother and older sister, we were the two younger ones, so we were really close, and we basically were together all the time.
So there's 4 of them. Okay. Unless I've misunderstood what she said, I understood that to be the 2 younger ones and the older brother, the older sister. So there's 4 of them there. But did you see the difference in her smile? Then it was the initial presentation that dropped back down, but there was still the tension in the cheeks. There was still the tension in the lids. There's still breathing being held in the chest area, so she's not completely comfortable with this practice. Whether that be towards the deposition or her early childhood, it remains to be seen at this stage. But her relationship with Johnny is a strong, emotionally connected, positive one. But they share those presentations in terms of I'm struggling to find a better word than understated. In that you don't need to be all to display your zeal with your happiness. You can be just as easy with going, I feel good, right? So it lends itself to the agreeableness, to the openness side of things, to the lower registry of neuroticism, if you're thinking on there. But everything lends itself towards emotional stability at this stage. So the particulars of things like the libelous case that went before that, when emotional stability isn't held in those people that, I'm trying to put it politely, in those people that act out in a domestically violent way, there is a contradictory notion here in terms of the presentation of personality, which lends further credence to their choice towards how they deal with tense moments.
We played together. We played Hot Wheels. We, played Batman and Robin, where we each had a role in that. And he's probably going to be embarrassed I say any of this, but
if she goes for it, I'm going to go. Depp was Robin. That's what I'm going to go for.
We practiced, karate kicks with each other and chopping. We were just friends. We were like best friends.
What was Johnny like as a young boy?
Objection, Your Honor, 404.
If you want to approach.
Oh, the sound's gone off. I'm not sure if that's part of it or not. Or they reconvene over something. But the sadness there. Most people would consider that to be emblematic when you look at the body language properties, but if you look at the physicality of his body, the relaxed nature leaning towards that side to bring it up here, it's mostly related to keeping themselves from saying something, or he's closing his lips, which isn't necessarily true, right? It is just a link to provide yourself with a degree of calm in the face of inherently negative situations, whether that be things that make you feel sad or angry or anxious, or all of the affiliated emotional states in that area. Because there's no tension.
As I was saying, Ms. Dembrowski, what was Johnny like as a little boy?
Hi there. If you have weight to lose and don't want to compromise your health, then the Fast 800
He was
Bloody adverts.
a shy, sweet little boy. He had a very caring personality, but also he was a little bit of a clown. He loved to, play tricks on us or try to scare us. He was a very typical happy little boy.
Objection, Your Honor. Move to strike 404.
Why is
Your
the
Honor, I'm
objection there?
going exactly where I said I was going.
All right, I'll stay in the last part of her answer, and we'll go forward from there.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Ms. Dembrowski, how would you describe your parents' relationship?
That was complicated.
There we
Would you
go.
please explain to the jury what you mean when you say your parents' relationship was?
So now we've got a basis for further observations that we can make when he's indicating a degree of discomfort around a topic that's going to be talked about, right? Is in this displacement, energy has to go somewhere when you look at things from a thermodynamic prospect. This isn't to get into the whole physics of that area, but energy doesn't go away; it simply changes in terms of its position in the world. So rather than inhibit responses and strengthen and retreat when one normally does during the fear, flight, and fight registry of emotional states at their particular height, this is being slightly leaked out, just slightly, but it's done on the first time initially spoken about in the parents, and on this time spoken about in the parents. So we've got something to look for moving forwards. If it changes on differing standpoints, or he does it when nobody's speaking or no topics are being discussed, then we have further information to question this observation moving back with, right? But for now, this is something that should it be presented again, we have an indication towards this is how he presents moments of discomfort.
It's complicated.
Our parents they had two completely different personalities, and where our father was also a very kind, patient, loving, gentle man.
That's just popped into my head as well. I'm going to have to fact check this myself, but I believe there was a study done in the APA of parents with two completely differing parental styles. Obviously, this is we can all see what's coming here. They are trying to insinuate that the kind of inclination towards DV was brought on through childhood exposure. But what I mean is, when you look at the studies that were done into parents that have two completely different parenting styles, the children have been known to have a proclivity towards mental illness and even schizophrenia. Again, I would have to fact check the citation of that, but there was definitely a study done in that area that I read about.
And our mom was the opposite. She was very high-strung, very nervous, anxiety, angry. So they were completely opposite people.
What was your mother's first name?
Betty,
Did your mother, Betty, ever get angry with your father?
yes.
How would your mother express her anger toward your father?
Mom would,
So you can see again within her displays at the minute, her breathing becoming so laboured as a result of this tension, right? We're only getting the indications that she's feeling a degree of anxiety from how she's breathing. We can see the tension here, but we can also see that she's breathing more because she's having to moisten her lips and therefore moisten the whatever's going on inside of her mouth that would allow her to speak freely and allow her to speak comfortably, right? Giving further credence towards the understated notion of her non-verbal displays. When you look at somebody who I presume, as she is the older sister, I presume to be in her 60s, because I know Johnny Depp to be in his late 50s, so I would presume her to be in her 60s, but that comes with in the skin a lack of elastin, a lack of collagen, right, which you normally see these high-flung Hollywood types having Botox and the like. She clearly hasn't had any of it done. But if you look at the remnants of wrinkles that are on her face in terms of an echo of default expressions that are consistently used, they aren't there. Right, they aren't there at all. I'm very expressive with my eyes and my eyebrows, so you can see with mine, there's that default wrinkle set there in terms of the expression of how I use them, because I'm consistently doing things like this all of the time. Very much not. Right, very much not. So there is even when she's not talking, even when she's not expressing, you know. I'm struggling to think of a non-creepy way of saying this, but if we were to see her when she was asleep, we would still see the remnants of her default state being not necessarily devoid of passion, not necessarily devoid of authenticity, but devoid of unnecessary animation.
She would scream, she would yell at him, she would hit him, call him names, that kind of thing.
Did your father ever hit your mother back?
No, Dad never reacted when Mom would hit him or scream at him.
If he didn't hit her back, how, if at all, did he react?
Basically,
if there's nobody to her right that she's looking directly at, then we've got some more information in terms of what she does when she's retrieving information. Right? This isn't an eye accessing cue or any of that nonsense, because that's rubbish. But this is a display that she's doing in terms of how she picks information from her past, how she talks about things that have happened, and then she comes back to the guy who's asking her questions in the middle.
He would let her scream and get it out or hit and be done. And the way that you dealt with my mom, the way that he dealt with my mom was he always tried to keep the peace. So he never wanted to, you know, he didn't want to engage in anything. So he was very, you know, he would step back, and whatever it was that she was angry about, he would try to go ahead and make sure that he took care of whatever she was insisting that he do.
Is it fair to say he did what she wanted?
Yes, it's very fair to say he did.
What, if anything, did you and Johnny do while your mother was hitting or attacking your father?
We would leave the area. We would run and hide. We would go to our room, you know, either we would go to our room together or, you know, depending on where we lived, you know, if our room was close, we would sort of run off and get away from it.
So again, right, we've got everything confirmed so far in terms of the anxiety displays, where she's going to pick information, where she's gone previously to pick information from these memories that she's talking about that have happened. It's obviously filling her with a great deal of sadness because the tone of her voice is dropping, the pitch of her voice is dropping along with it. She's still breathing tensely from the chest. The hands have not moved from either the table that's in front of her or her lap, whichever's there, because we can't actually see that, but you can tell from the clothes that everything's pointing in that way. So still, given that there's a lot of things going on in here and in here, the presentations are still very understated. So to me, at this stage, that's enough to base that on. Right, there's no kind of duplicitous marks here in terms of a creation of story. There's no kind of embellishment that would be out of sorts with somebody that has an understated behavioral core at this moment. But if you look at the data sets en masse along the spectrum of domestic violence cases, if you were going to be quite reductionistic about the presentations of them, it would either be those that go away or those that get involved. Right, those that are what their dad did in this scenario, just get it out, do what you got to do, and then we'll move on with our lives. Or those that bite back in this area. So if you think about the way this works in everyday life, what do these scenarios have when people are biting back and biting back and biting back? Eventually, it explodes. Have you ever tried to have an argument or seen somebody try to have an argument with somebody that's just not registering. Yeah, it's like screaming into a black hole. It doesn't do anything. It deflates the whole scenario, which can either lead to jumping the gun of explosion because they're not getting the food for this emotional state that they're in, where there is a distinct inability to think rationally when you're that highly strung, regardless of what the emotion is. Anyway, but particularly when it comes to the notion of violent indicators. So there's very much an either-or presentation here, and if we're looking, if the questions are supposed to look at what this exposure has driven in terms of his, Mr. Depp's, use of what he learnt as a kid, then initially it sounds like leaving, walking away, being the Benvolio of the whole scenario. If you're familiar with Romeo and Juliet, you've got the if you look at the struggle between Mercutio and Tybalt, both of these guys biting back from either sides of the family, no one willing to apologize or walk away and whatever, and it results in one of them dying. Whereas Benvolio, the whole time, he even says in certain scenes, "I do but keep the peace." All right, and it's a great struggle, and he's very sad the whole time because he bears the weight of the emotion of everyone that's around him. Just because you're trying to keep the peace doesn't make it easy. Right, doesn't make it easy, and this is what we're seeing very much in her, because it's obviously her deposition at this stage. There is a great weight of emotion that she's been buried under from a young age. You could argue, there's very little to prove at this stage, but you could argue that this is what has led to the understated behavior. You could make that argument because there is an understanding that they would have that nothing comes from escalation, right? I said it in a customer service role that I was in years ago, when people would ask me, why don't you get like angry or pissed off when people are shouting at you and whatnot? Just because they say it louder doesn't make them right. Right, but you still have to bear the weight of that in order to feed that information back to somebody.
How did your mother treat you and your brothers and sisters?
Well, there's a similarity. I'm sorry, in how she treated.
I'm sorry because the sadness is getting a little bit too much. She's feeling this come forward now, right? So when she feels that she's starting to display too much, it unsettles somebody that has an understated behavioral core.
Dad, again, she was very anxious, high-strung. She screamed, she yelled, she hit, she threw things. She called us names. You know, we each had our own little special set of names. Some we wouldn't repeat, but so she gave each one of us a name. My name, for example, was Violet, which to some people it wouldn't seem like it's anything, but Violet.
You can see her initial heightened moments of sadness. She's got a distinct default. I wouldn't call it a droop, but it's an incline angle towards the muscles of the lip here. But when it's particularly heightened, they drop further.
It was my father's mother, and my mom hated my father's mother, so that was my special name. One of them.
Did your mother have any special names?
Did you see the smile that popped in on Johnny's face? I said that right the way back when I looked at his deposition footage in terms of these are smiles of pain to get you through this kind of thing, right? It's a very English thing to do, to bottle it up and just dig down and push your way through.
For Johnny?
Yes, she did. She had a few. Again, some to not repeat.
Okay, so in terms of we getting the angles there, she's looking at Johnny towards that line there. Hence the I mean, I paused it on her blinking, but hence the contact, eye contact rather, and the it's not a real smile, but it is this shared smiling through difficulty. in those areas. It's when she looks further to the right that she's gaining memories and going back towards the left when she's responding to the guy in the middle. But in parts of the moment before, you could see Johnny has moved from here slightly down to a more of a rest. Right, it's not a full rest on there, but there's more of a rest in the emotional state, because that's the effect that revivifying these moments is having on him, right?
Her favorite, I think, was, she called him One Eye. And she called him that because when he was young, the doctors thought he had a lazy eye, so they would put a patch on his good eye so that they would strengthen the other eye. So she used that as, you know, a way to find a new fun name for him.
But again, look at the language. Special names, fun names, when in reality they were anything but. They were anything but. Further presentations of people who aren't confrontational, right? Further presentations of people who are doing their best as children to make the best of a bad situation, and the understanding growing that reacting in the way that their mother didn't really solve or do anything, it just damaged.
How did Johnny respond when your mother would call him One Eye?
He didn't respond in any negative way. Those names were just a way of life. We got used to them. We accepted all of it.
Putting aside the names, did your mother ever get angry with you?
Yes.
Did your mother ever get physical with you?
Yes, she did.
Hear that change? That's tension, right? Which most people will, oh, the picture's gone up, oh, they're lying. That's a falsehood. You're assuming, which from assuming initially we know how that works anyway, but that is a Pinocchio effect, in that we hear the voice go up, it's tantamount to that. When, don't be daft, right? You get just the same response from tension, from discomfort, from fear, or all of the affiliated negative states that would cause tension in this area, that would cause a voice to go temporarily higher. Doesn't necessarily have to be immediately about lies.
But I was also very quiet, very shy, and I learned early on to stay back. So I was more in the background, because I would constantly sort of stay in the background to stay away from trouble.
Ms. Dembrowski, when your mother did get physical with you, what forms did that take?
Well, she would hit us. She would throw things.
Another fallacy that I just want to touch upon as well, that is mostly the fault of Lie to Me. I love the show, but it's mostly the fault of things like that, for perpetuating this kind of belief that there is an immediate response towards this area of talking about things that are happening whilst shaking your head no, or saying yes when shaking your head no, or saying no while doing this for yes, right? That has a grounding in a very specific situational circumstance. But if you look throughout the entire course of these 11 minutes, nearly 12 minutes so far, there has been this presentation here whenever she's spoken about things. I know I do this a lot when I'm talking about this. Doesn't mean that I'm contradicting whatever I'm saying at that particular standpoint. It is just another reactionary element towards displacing energy. Right? If I've got a lot of, if you've ever been so overjoyed, you know, well, let's talk about something positive just briefly for a moment. If you've ever been so overjoyed at a birthday present or a Christmas present that you've been given, and it's been paradigm alteringly amazing, right? What is some of the things that you do? Oh my God. You're shaking your head no during a positive moment. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're contradicting it. So you might not have been thinking that at all, but this is one of those sort of body language falsehoods that are perpetuated en masse that I just wanted to jump on there. They're the same as, oh, it's duping delight because they're smiling. No.
She would have us go pick a switch, off of a tree, so that would be what she could hit us with. And
These are Smile Direct Club aligners. They're laser cut.
make sure that we got one that was
Looking
nice
at
and
boots.
green. So that
Why, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Why did it have to be nice and green?
well, if it wasn't a nice green twig, it would snap. Those didn't break. If you got a dry one, they snap. They don't work the same.
Smile again.
Did your mother ever
Tension.
get angry at Johnny?
Yes.
Did you ever observe your mother hitting Johnny?
Yes.
How, if at all, did Johnny react when his mother would hit him?
He was a typical little boy where if it hurt, he would cry. That was it. I mean,
Listen to the change again as well. Felt state responses. Not a great deal being given from Johnny other than reliving it. At the moment, it was a degree of tension, but it's an echo of tension because it was decades ago. Doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt. Just mean that it's easier to deal with at this time, right? Hence the lack of eye contact, the smiles when you're remembering something challenging or tense or traumatic at the moment, but the whole position, there's not been a great change of his internalized responses that would indicate he's doing something very strong to inhibit his responses. There's no tension there, so there's just not a lot of felt state heightened level energy, other than which we would associate with things of a negative state when you're speaking from positional trauma, right?
for the most part, you just wanted to get away from it.
Did Johnny ever hit his mother back?
No.
What about when he got to be an older boy? Did he ever resist or hit her
No.
back?
No. No. When he was older, even if she hit or threw things, he never went to that place. He would get away. He would, leave the area, go to his room.
Thumbs starting to be the release of the energy that's being a growing source within him at the moment. Difficult to tell whether it's coming from any kind of a place of discomfort or acknowledgement or pleasantries, although there's next to no signs that would indicate pleasantries. It may be the pressing matter of temporary self-soothing, of temporary dissuading further growth of acknowledged uncomfortable feelings. But there is definitely a great swell of sadness that's in there that we can see from, again, the tension in the shoulders, tension in the lower jawline, particularly the lower lip being held in at this stage. Not a lot of action in the cheeks or the forehead, which, if people were thinking that whether she's been prepared or whether he's been educated on the fact that they're going to talk about this and this and this, that you would see signs of acknowledgement of the presentation of this storyline, when there isn't that. There is response to triggers when somebody relives something that they did or said or were involved in.
Ms. Dembrowski, did there come a time when you left the family household?
Yes.
When did you leave the household?
I left when I was 17. I was pregnant and got married and moved out into my own place.
How did it feel when you left the family to go out and go to your own place?
I think there's a bittersweetness to it.
Bittersweetness in terms of the connections to the stronger family ties that she has, positively. The bitterness in terms of leaving that obviously traumatic side behind her. catch-22?
I was really young. I had just turned 17. But I was so looking forward to this new life that I could create that was different from what we had at home. And so it was a part of me that was really happy to be able to do this, really excited. And there was another part that was sad because I left behind my little brother and my dad.
If you could explain that a bit, how did, if at all, did your experience with your mother affect your ideas about what you intended to do with your own family?
Well, really early
See that
on,
pull down then,
as a young
additionally?
child, none of what was happening in our home felt good. And so as I got older, you know,
So we've got a fair understanding so far in terms of her core, right? In terms of the registry of her personality traits. If you're looking at this from a Schwartz psychological values approach, this would be self-transcendent qualities of things like benevolence. You know, there is the need to protect those in her immediate vicinity, with the strongest connections that she has, you know, with security values, but also when you look at the values that are placed at odds towards one another, that lead towards a kind of dissonance, almost. If you look at the life that she was about to lead as a 17-year-old, becoming a mom, acknowledged that she was very young but excited about what she can do for this new life that she's creating. There's a degree of stimulation there. There's a degree of self-direction there, which come at odds towards security, conformity, and traditional values there. Which, if you aren't familiar with how I'm talking about the understanding of her behavioral core, I encourage you to look up the Schwartz value measure, and in terms of the big 5 personality traits, you're looking at the ocean, which would be don't just look at the ocean. You can look at the ocean if you want, but we're looking at openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Ocean. And one of the biggest proponents of this as a teachable concept is Jordan Peterson. Like him or lump him, he's one of the biggest proponents of understanding the legitimacy of the data sets that this research presents. But what we're going to do here is push this on. We're going to push it on to about halfway. And we're going to assess for any kind of changes within that, right? So we should be factoring in that we're missing out a huge degree of data, right? So anything that we are basing on moving forwards, that we are having to rely on the basis that we've made initially, should be done on that understanding that we are missing out data in between. But just for the sake of brevity as part of the video, let's go to 3858. And it immediately says ads in 5, so I guess there'll be an advert coming up soon.
duties.
Has anyone ever referred to you as Johnny's personal manager?
Hi there. If you have weight to lose and don't want to compromise your health, then the Fast 800...
I have been called that before, yes.
Do you perform the responsibilities of being Johnny's personal manager?
I did.
Do you still work with Johnny?
Yes.
So, if it is that we are using the basis that what we've said before, she's turned slightly away from the guy asking the questions, and Johnny's presenting with the anxiety chair swivel, with the lip being pulled in again at the side as well. Sorry, at the front rather. So if it is that this is still connected towards this discomfort presentation, it will be because they are both understanding why the questions are going this way, that they're doing this to question the legitimacy of her ability to be objective, in that not only is she his sister, but she also works for him, and also this, right? So there is the question of whether there's enough separation between them to be able to objectively look at the information that's being discussed.
Do you also work with any of Johnny's companies? Or strike that. Does your brother have any companies associated with him?
He has a production company called Infinitum Nile.
What type of company is Infinitum Nile?
It's a production company. We develop, projects for films or television.
It's a production company. What type of company is Infinitum Nile? It's a production company.
Television or, different things.
And putting aside your responsibilities as your brother's personal managers, what role, if any, do you play in Infinitum Nile?
I'm president of Infinitum Nile.
When did you start working at Infinitum Nile?
From the beginning, in 2004. I think we started in July 2004.
And would you please explain to the jury some of your responsibilities as president of Infinitum Nile?
My duties as president were I oversaw everything.
I always have moments like Chandler in that scenario. My duties, and then I have to move on because I'm an incredible child at heart. I'm just going to skip on a little bit further to around the 50. Oh, it's poking at her then, so the questions might be around that topic. Let's go from 50 minutes. There we go.
They didn't want to disrupt the children's lives when they were going to school. So if Dad had to go off and go work, and the children stayed home, this is where we get into we still maintained a home for the family wherever he was filming. Because they would, if they had the opportunity to come back and forth. But at the same time, Johnny would travel back every 2 weeks, to see his kids.
And when you say he would travel back, who was it who made those travel arrangements?
I made the travel arrangements.
Did you have occasion to observe Johnny interact with the mother of his children, Vanessa Paradis, over the 14 years they were together?
Yes, I did.
Would you please tell the jury what you observed about the interactions between Mr.
We all know how she's going to describe that. We all know, because we've read it correctly up until this stage. It will be in the usual, she'll say, calm, loving, normal, these kinds of words.
Mr. Depp and Vanessa. This is directly relevant.
I'll allow observations. I'll overrule the objection.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. What did you observe about Mr. Depp's interactions with the mother of his children?
They were a great couple. I mean, first you could see that they were friends. They were happy together. They got along great. It was a happy, normal couple.
I'll sustain the objection at this point then.
Thank you.
All right.
Did you ever hear your brother yell at Vanessa?
No.
That was something else that she heard after the answer to the question.
Yes, sir.
It's not leading. To what extent, if any, have
Well, that wasn't the question, Mr. Chair.
404 is the main objection.
Okay. I'll sustain on that objection. Next question.
But the answer was heard.
what, if any, violence did you observe between?
I'll go ahead, finish your question first.
Well, if I think you're going to sustain the objection, perhaps I should read.
Maybe we should move on, yes.
Okay. All right. Did Vanessa ever claim that Johnny ever physically abused her?
No.
Foundation calls for hearsay.
All right. Hearsay objection.
I mean, it's splitting hairs that they do in terms of the legal notion of it, but the answer was heard. Calm? No reaction. I can't even do that myself without my eyebrows getting involved. No. Right? Because it's not that it is ridiculous, because that doesn't fit in with her behavioural core. It's just, it didn't happen. So, no.
It's not offered for the proof of it's what she observed, what she heard. She was the personal manager, Your Honor.
That would be hearsay. I'll sustain the objection. Thank you.
Did there come a time when Johnny and Vanessa separated after 14 years?
Yes.
How would you describe their relationship today?
It'll be the same as you would describe friends. No tension, that kind of thing. No something that is inherently implied with divorced couples and kids being involved, that there is some kind of underlying rage monster waiting to come out from either person. It would just be that it is normal. They are there about the kids. They are there trying to create as loving a scenario as they can for the kids. That's what I'm expecting her to say. Things along that nature.
Same objection, 4-4.
Oh, come on.
And calls for hearsay as well, and foundation.
I don't think it calls for hearsay, Your Honor. She's his
I
sister.
understand, but it's a character evidence issue, so I'll sustain the objection.
Who is Amber Heard?
That one.
My brother's ex-wife.
When did you first meet Amber Heard?
I first met her when she came to the
Did you see that breath in? Tension. It didn't come out straight away.
office for casting on Rum Diary, probably late 2008, I think, somewhere in there.
Did you see Miss Heard on set?
Yes.
What, if anything, did you observe?
When she was working on set,
I want to know here now if her chair is going to come back around. I find it interesting that this is just me. It might be nothing, but this is just my curiosity at this stage, that as soon as she's brought up, she starts swiveling away. Displacement of energy, tension, negativity.
I mostly observed, some of the, I was there for some of the scenes, and in between, she was a bit sort of like, standoffish, had all, people, coming around her, but I don't really have that much time with her on set.
When was Rum Diary actually released?
2011,
Was Johnny in that movie?
yes.
What role, if any, did you have with respect to Rum Diary?
I was one of the producers.
And after seeing Miss Heard on the set in 2009, 2010, when was the next time you saw Miss Heard?
I think the next time I saw her was we were
Now there are those at this stage with their feelings towards her might be projecting notions of disgust, notions of contempt in terms of her perception of status, right? When all she is doing is she's just sitting. There is a relaxed notion towards her cheek. I don't know how far globally this goes, but it's referred to in the UK as resting bitch face. I don't know how far across the world that goes. If it does, then you understand what I'm talking about. But there is this default notion towards a face at rest that gives off this kind of impression that has the tendency for people to project concerns up onto it that aren't necessarily there. She is one of those people, right? right? Like it or lump it, that's the case at the minute. But what we're also getting is a depressed tension towards the buccinator muscles, which is a notion towards a disagreement, which he initially started towards the observation that people were quite standoffish around her, and which I would bet at least one of my toes on, that there is something on the notes that she wrote down that would have been a point, her attempt to try and disprove that, her attempt to try and add further information that you can question that further because of boom, 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 which we see in people that are coming at certain concepts from a Machiavellian perspective. They jump on every little detail that is an affront to their image that they're trying to create, right?
We're promoting Rum Diary towards the end of 2011, I think. I was not able to go on the full promotional tour where we do screenings for people around the country. But I was able, because my mom was sick, but I was able to attend the one in Los Angeles. So I saw her at that event.
What did you observe? So you attended the premiere?
I attended the premiere and the dinner afterward, yes.
Would you please describe for us what you observed at the premiere?
At the dinner.
Yeah, he's not come back around.
At the dinner.
Because I sat outside at the premiere. I didn't actually watch the movie. I'd already seen it. I sat at the same table with some of the other people involved in the cast. So I saw Johnny and Amber, you know, they were seated together. I saw them talking quite a bit, and she seemed very friendly that night, yes.
She's already having suspicions that the friendliness is nefarious, shall we say? That's where she's coming from in terms of that. She already thinks that there's an ulterior motive.
Did there come a...
And I realise that without grounding, it might seem that I'm projecting my own concerns on there. But if you look at all I'm doing in that area is adding up each and every element of the negativity of her non-verbals that she's displaying towards the conversations around Miss Heard in this area, and applying that which would fit every single one of them. Right, everything from the slight drops in volume, the slight drops in pitch, tone, jaw tension, the reactions of her eyes, the lip pulls back, the tension in the breathing, the lack of movement in the chair, the lack of engagement from an energized level at this particular standpoint. Right, so there may be other things going on. I'm not disputing that, but that's my rational understanding of every one of these elements at this stage. If they get into it, I'd like to hear, but if they don't, that's where I am at this moment.
A time when you learned that Johnny and Amber were romantically involved?
Yes.
When was that?
I don't recall exactly. I know it was sometime after the Rum Diary premiere.
To what extent did you have occasion to observe Johnny and Miss Heard together early in their relationship?
But what we should take into account as well is when we are looking at documentary films and the like, we're looking through the lens of somebody else. Now, at these stages, when they are showing her and they're showing Depp as well, they're looking for reactions. They're looking for focus on the two main people that this case is about, when the particular part of this video is about Miss Dembrowski and all of her information. So we need to question why the cameras are being pointed at her for so long, or indeed pointed at Depp for so long, during Christie's deposition, right, at this time, and the nature of our ability to read this correctly, because at this stage we're going off what we can hear in response to her reactions that we can see, when we really need everything from Miss Dembrowski to have a clearer picture. Chair still hasn't come back around.
I would see them. There were times when she would come and visit our mom, I would see her then, I would see the two of them then. I didn't really spend a tremendous amount of time with her.
Had you formed any impression of Miss Heard at that time based on your observations?
I did. I did. Look, I didn't know her very well, and I would spend time. Like I said, she would come to my mom's house. I sat with her and my mom.
Check on 404. What was your impression of Amber?
Based on her observation, she's describing what she observed, Your Honor.
Doesn't matter. It's still 404.
I don't think that's right, Your Honor. I think she's describing what she observed.
Right. We want to approach for a moment. We'll just
So we all know why he's actually calling a objection towards this. It is the what a time to get a phone call. Midstream. Oh, fabulous. Right, so we all know why he's actually done this, and it reminds me of Liar Liar of all things. I object, Your Honor. Why? Because it's devastating to my case. So they're going to have a discussion about this. He may have a good legal grounding to base this on, but you can tell from the indignation of the guy with the glasses in the bluish suit as to why he's actually presented this. So let's back to Johnny again. Fabulous, but again, this might be legal.
These are Smile Direct Club aligners. They're laser.
During the moments to point away from the approach of the bench. I don't know how far they are allowed to film things like that. So that may be further observations that we can make about this particular thing. Here we go.
Did there come a time when your brother and Ms. Heard started to live together?
Yes.
And when did that occur approximately, if you recall?
I don't recall the timing. I don't recall the time frame. I believe they had moved downtown to the Eastern Columbia building, but I don't remember exactly when that was.
What type of structure was the Eastern Columbia building? Was that a freestanding house or was it apartments?
It's apartments, and he had the penthouses on the top floor.
How many penthouses did your brother own on the top floor of the Eastern Columbia building?
I think it was 5 apartments.
Do you know who lived in those 5 apartments when your brother and Miss Heard went to live there?
I know.
You're getting tired now. That was a stifled yawn.
I know who lived down there. I know Isaac, a friend of Johnny's named Isaac, lived down there.
I'm gonna reasonably induce that is the other guy that's done the deposition at this stage. I'm gonna skip it on a little bit as well. Let's go to 1 hour 15. So we're skipping another 15 minutes of it.
Holding his hand and, you know, leaning on him, hugging him. That was-
Did your brother hug him
Chester
back?
hasn't come back
hug her
around.
back?
Yes, but it was mostly her hugging.
And switching subjects from that time on the set, did there come a time when you learned that Johnny was going to marry Miss Heard?
Yes.
You hear that? That's the sadness that's there in the relaxing of the lower lids, the relaxing of the shoulders that she was currently pressed on after that tilt towards that side. It's dropped now. There is the slight disengagement of the lower back within the comfortable seat. That's a source of great pain. So what we were saying earlier in terms of the tension that all of those points added up to in terms of how that related towards her feelings of Miss Heard, we've got further evidence to support that.
And this is a little complicated, so I'm just going to ask you in a narrative form. I understand there was a wedding, and that there were a couple of ceremonies. If you could just please describe that to the jury.
There was a wedding celebration that was
She turned around further to face the jury as well. So we've got a registry of her ability to communicate with people that she's being asked to communicate with. Further evidence to support where we have put her as part of openness, agreeableness, these kinds of things.
together on the island. So they had a wedding ceremony on the island. But prior to going to the island to do that, they actually got married in Los Angeles because they had to get married in Los Angeles because they couldn't get married, paperwork, etc. On the island. So they got married in LA.
How did you learn that they were going to get married?
We were already working on the celebration part, and I knew that the date was at some point.
If you look at the body as a structure that has to give rise towards movement to facilitate degrees of comfort, right? So she is in a chair that does spin. So in order to fully accent the comfort that her structure needs to have a conversation with somebody who's over there, she should be turning, but she's not, right? So there is this going on, right? There is a dissonance in terms of her body's want to either get out of the chair or not talk about the topic or get down off the stand, these kinds of things, versus being asked to answer these questions. Now, there is more information to indicate that it's about the topics that are being discussed, because there's still interspersed freedom of motion within this, but it all comes back to an incongruence as part of the displays that are there. She's having a conversation about things that she doesn't really want to at this stage, but her openness, her agreeableness, her benevolence at this stage about her family and particularly her little brother is taking primary seat.
They were going to pick a date to try to get married in Los Angeles, but I didn't know the actual date that had been decided until he called me, which was pretty much right before the date.
What was your reaction upon hearing from your brother that he was going to marry Miss Heard?
I was...
Talk about controlling yourself. That is a look right there that should be under the dictionary definition of "I'm sorry." he's apologising to his sister. Yeah, that's what that is.
I was scared. I was devastated, actually, that it was going to happen as quickly as it was being pushed for. I actually tried to talk him into just waiting a little bit longer, just a little bit, and not rushing.
Why did you want him to wait a little bit longer?
There had been conversations about a prenuptial agreement that had been going on
Go back to Christi.
for a while. And as the date was approaching, for the island ceremony,
Yeah, still hasn't come back.
there was no success in the prenuptial conversations. And I knew it was important. His representatives had explained the importance, and I knew it was important to him for his children. And we were rushing to do something without his children being protected.
Specifically, if you could explain to the jury what involvement you had in those discussions about a prenuptial agreement.
Objection to foundations discussions with him.
She's testified about her.
I'll allow it. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think, what was your involvement in the discussions involving the prenuptial agreement?
Mostly it was, I spoke with the attorneys and the representatives so that they explained the importance of it and they explained the reasons behind it.
Move to strike hearsay.
I'll allow it.
You see that? That was the same on her face then. What? How is that hearsay?
That means you can keep going.
Okay, so I'm sorry. So that we could have further conversation and with Johnny and there was an attorney that they coordinated with for Amber. So that was where I was involved in the coordinating that part.
Which side wanted a prenup?
Johnny's side wanted a prenup.
And I believe what you said may have gotten lost. Why did Johnny's side want a prenup?
Well, the prenup was to make sure that his children were protected.
Right?
That's Jack and
No,
Lily
she's coming
Rose.
back.
Jack and Lily Rose, yes.
She's coming back.
Did your brother and Ms. Heard ever sign a prenup?
No.
Why not?
Amber didn't sign it.
Did you end up...
Look at that tension. There. She thought about whether to be as direct about saying Amber didn't sign it, or as whether to say things like she didn't sign it, or Miss Heard didn't sign it, or his ex-wife didn't sign it, or whatever it is that kind of puts that distance between the directness that is often not allowed as part of these proceedings.
Despite your misgivings, did you end up attending the wedding the ceremony between your brother and Miss Heard on the island in the Bahamas?
Yes, I did, but I also attended the actual wedding in Los Angeles.
And
Just cut towards the moving towards the end of it.
what was the next time you saw Amber Heard after the celebration on the island?
It would have been when she came back from Australia.
The dogs incident. Still
And
maintaining
I will get to that,
pose.
Your Honor. Is it possible for us to take a very quick break?
Sure. You still have quite a bit of direct left, I assume?
Oh, I do have a fair amount, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we go ahead and have you.
We'll come back. We'll come back after that one, just to see what's happening here. Some of you guys let me know. Yeah, resting bitch face is a common term in the USA. Lovely. Isaac is the artist. Yeah, that look away by JD at the first mention of the prenup, very telling at this stage. Right, so guys, I've kept you for long enough, but you asked for the detail, so I tried to be detailed. So there we go. It's your own fault, nothing else. Right, so we're going to be following up with a look at Isaac as well. And then any further, things that you want me to have a look at as this keeps going, then let me know. You're gonna have to drop these down in the comments below. But yeah, so with that in mind, make sure you click on ye old subscription button. Sue Ellen from Paris, it was very interesting. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. I do hope you mean the video, not just the deposition stuff, although that is just as interesting. I'm going to take it as a compliment either way. And I'll see you next time for another episode of the podcast, and we'll get this stuff finished off pretty soon. Thanks for your time, guys. I will love you and leave you, and I'll talk to you all soon. Take care.